Happy New Year. We're so excited for what's coming up 2025. So we're jumping into part 2 of a conversation around communication. And so I'm so excited to see where we get to go into the new year. I want to be better this year as a
Yeah.
communicator. How about you?
Yeah, me too.
Me too. So let's dive in and see what we can uncover together.
Yeah. Okay, so that made me think. So I remember,
2 weeks before our wedding.
no,
Oh, sorry.
I love that you keep bringing up that story. I hate that story. We can talk about it later, but
Sorry.
about how we did premarital counseling.
Mm-hmm.
Not premarital counseling, we did pre-engagement counseling.
That's right.
Never
Yep.
heard anything like it until I got here to America.
Yep. Same.
Yeah. Where, well, you do pretty much you do counseling before you even get engaged.
Yep.
And so you're like, hey, do you want to do this with this couple? And like they're mentors of yours. Would you like to do it? So I was like, for sure, because that meant, oh wow, you actually think that maybe we could get married? Yes, whatever it takes. And then when we were in those sessions, things would come up, and I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, I'm sharing everything. And there definitely was time and time again that fear that I'm going to look across the couch and see you and you're going to be like, I don't think I can do this.
Mm.
And that was really scary
Mm-hmm.
because you hadn't committed to me. I mean, even if you had committed to me through engagement, you could break it off, but you hadn't committed to me yet, and I hadn't committed to you. So we were in a very I think it's actually a brilliant way of doing it. It was like very safe, that there was nothing on the table. It wasn't like we're just doing counseling sessions to make it work.
Yeah.
We were doing sessions with talking about the truth, bringing everything to the table so we could see, is this really the person we want to spend our life with?
Mm. Yep.
And I don't know if we always spend that time deliberating because we care so much about getting married that we'll do whatever it takes. Even I just said that a second ago. I just said, oh yeah, yes, I'll do premarital with you or pre-engagement because I'll do whatever it takes if that means we're going to get married.
Sure.
But that's actually not the best posture. The best posture is, let's actually see if we're going to say yes to each other even in the darkest moments. Am I going to say yes to you even if I know everything about you?
Yeah.
And that means you had to, first of all, tell me everything.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I had way more to share than you did. But it's like,
How so? What do you mean?
I mean, I think that I made more mistakes. Made a lot more choices that I regret in my early 20s. And then, my family just seemed broken. And I just felt like once you knew everything of all the things that I came from, that you would see, oh, you're not good enough for me.
Mm.
Like, you're damaged goods.
Yeah.
And I remember feeling after that one session, I was like, oh, if you said no to me, you have all the right to say no.
Mm. But I love the fact that even in the midst of being afraid of all that, you did share it all. I think, and that's one reason why it worked. And one of the many reasons is because you weren't withholding things. Even if you were afraid, even if there was a worry or concern, there wasn't things that were being held back.
Mm.
Whereas I think a lot of times, that's when relationships fall apart, is when it's not that the person had faults or made mistakes or had issues, is that they withheld the information.
Mm.
And then somebody feels blindsided because they're like, it's not that I'm judging you for your choice. I'm just wondering why you felt like you couldn't trust me with the truth. And then to be able to let people decide, right? That whole process, even though as weird as it was, I'd never heard of it before, this pre-engagement, I do think the environment of it and the framework is actually really brilliant, because so oftentimes, right, when you're more committed, and especially when it comes to engagements, you're more likely to overlook red flags.
Yeah.
Because you're like, I'm paying for a wedding, sent out the invitations. Mom is already putting all the pressure on, and you're just less likely to be honest about concerns.
Yeah, that's a good point, that there's pressure from family. Now that you've told everyone this is the person I'm going to marry, now there's all this pressure against you, and now you may not see things clearly.
Yep. Or the guilt and shame of,
Yeah.
not guilt, but maybe the shame of, oh, I got engaged and then we ended it. Like, how humiliating.
Yeah.
But when you have all the information at the forefront, then you let the person decide, and vice versa. Do you choose this? You know, but, you know, we're talking about communication. I think that's the key, is making sure that in all things, at all times, you're bringing everything to the table.
Wow.
You know, you're believing that if this person is for me, then they'll take in all the information, and they're not going to reject me, but they're actually going to maybe be able to see me more clearly for the first time. You know, and I tell this to people all the time. We tell this, you know, but I'm thinking specifically with guys. It's like, you really don't know if you're ready to commit yourself to this person till death do us part, right? You really don't know until they see you fully naked, fully exposed. And I don't mean physically naked, right?
Yeah.
It's a metaphor, people. But
don't need to strip off.
But just meaning in terms of when you're not putting on the mask anymore, when you're not playing the game, when you're not putting your best foot forward, you're putting your honest self forward. And when you can see that person, and when they can see you clearly, and you're like, okay, I'm legitimately not hiding anymore.
Yeah.
It's like, that's the moment, you know, okay, I've let my walls come down with this person, and I've allowed them to see me for who I am. I've shared and communicated who I am, and now we get to decide what we want to do moving forward.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is, I think once that person is the right person for you, they're going to love you even more. Because that's the thing about, like, you didn't see it as like, oh, wow, that's really terrible of you, or terrible of your choices, or you didn't see it as a negative. You were like, wow, you're really resilient.
Sure.
Or, I'm not going to judge you on the past. I'm not going to judge you on your family. I'm going to, like, judge the fact that you were honest enough to share it, which I don't think I would have realized in that very moment. Like, I think luckily I did share, and luckily I did go there, but deep down I was like, oh, this is terrifying, because I don't know, I've seen more that I feel like maybe I grew up thinking if you share more or you're more vulnerable, then there's more likelihood that they'll leave you, and they won't love you as much.
Sure.
But it was actually the reverse, especially when it's in a healthy dynamic.
Yeah.
That because you were a healthy person, you loved me more because of my honesty, and it bounded us together. And maybe that's the thing. It's like, once you're completely honest with the other person, even in our disagreements or miscommunications now, when I share what's really going on, because obviously sometimes a fight comes on and I'm upset, but what I love is that you're like, okay, no, but tell me what's really going on. And I don't even really know what's going on until you ask that question. Then I'm like, okay, what is it that's really upsetting me? And then obviously there's so much more, and it's most of the time not even about you. It's about life. It's about where I'm headed. It's about friendships. It's about my own insecurity and where I feel like I feel lost in. And it's just coming up in this. It's like showing itself. Like, I'm unstable internally, and so it's like it's showing itself externally with you.
Yeah.
But once you ask that question, it like helps me dive deeper into my own self. Like, okay, what is off? Why do I feel uncertain? Why do I feel unconfident, or whatever it is? So I love that even you asking the question allows me to really, truly be honest. And then when I am honest and bring it to the table, it's like, I don't need to hold on to it anymore.
Sure. Yeah.
And there's like a freedom. You can let it go. And like, I think the fear is that it's like the worst is going to happen. But actually, I mean, there's a line in the scripture that said, the truth will set you free. Maybe that is the case in every circumstances. Like, this is those moments. If you're honest and you're truthful, it will actually bind you together
Yeah.
more than if you kept it to yourself.
Mm.
Even if you think that truth is the worst thing possible.
Yeah. Yeah, and it feels like it's the worst thing possible, but we don't realize until we're on the other side of it. Yeah, it's the dishonesty that was the worst
Wow.
case scenario, you know? Yeah, and I think that's so true with the healthy relationships that you see in the world, is that it's not void. It's not that they're void of conflict. It's not that they're void of challenge or tension. It does seem like that what they are void of is dishonesty.
Yeah.
Dishonesty. I just made up a word.
Dishonesty.
Dishonesty.
They're full of dishonesty and they're void of honesty. Maybe? Is that what you
No, I'm
said?
saying the healthy relationships
Oh.
are void of dishonesty.
Ah,
You know,
that's good.
because yeah, that's the thing, right? It's not that mistakes are like the end all be all. It's not like hurt is the end all be all, but it does seem like dishonesty can be the end all be all.
Wow.
That's what people have a hard time coming back from. It's when you've been lying to me. It's when you've been withholding from me. Because it feels like you're not, maybe at the end of the day, you're like, you're not the person I thought you were.
Mm.
Whereas like I can deal with the person that blows it.
Wow.
And deal with the person that misses it. I can deal with the person that I've seen is better than this, but I don't know if I can deal with the person that I don't even know.
Wow.
And maybe that's the huge aspect why communication is essential. And if you can establish it early on in all the hard moments,
Yeah.
is that I'm going to create a baseline of honesty,
Wow.
and authenticity and truth, knowing that if we can get through this now, it's actually going to be the backbone of our relationship for years to come.
Yeah.
I
Damn,
feel
that's
like
so good.
that's what helped us early on in a relationship to have hard conversations, joking and referencing about 2 weeks before we're married, really wrestling through, do we want to do this? Having hard conversations about character and personhood, about preferences, even little things, like I remember us one point, being early on dating, but going, hey, do you think you'll ever like live in Arizona? Do you see that in your future? Do you want to go, and really at the core where you were going to go is like, I'm being honest, I don't see myself as a
and
desert
I had never
girl.
been to Arizona, but I was still.
But just communicating, going, and you being straight up, hey, if you're somebody that wants to like go back and live in some areas, I don't know if that's what I want.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to be real direct and upfront about that and let you decide what you'll do with it.
Yeah. Well, it also gave me a gauge of like who you were quickly. It's like, oh, are you a small town person or a big city person? Like, how ambitious are you and where do you feel like your ambitions are going to take you? Because if we align with each other, then I'm going where you're going.
Sure. Yeah.
That might be the place I want to go. Yeah, I think that's great. I think like, I don't know if in my relationships, even in my family dynamics, we're always honest. And I think I saw a lot more dishonesty play out. And I think that's interesting because even if you are being dishonest, as long as you come clean at some point and show what it looks like to say, hey, I've been dishonest and I've been holding back and I'm sorry that this happened, then I think that's what can be super powerful, to be like, that's when as a child and as you're growing up, you start to see, oh my gosh, it doesn't matter how badly you mess up. It's if you can bring it and share it and be honest. Because if you can do that, it can be redeemed. Like
Yeah.
any relationship can be redeemed
Yep.
if you're honest.
For sure. Because you can't redeem or you can't heal something that hasn't come to the
Wow.
surface.
Yeah.
You know, and those are the things that eat us away from the inside out, right? Are the things that nobody else knows about. That's how a whole world can be thrive in the midst of darkness.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not gonna call them out or specifics, but there's like arenas in culture that live off of the dark.
Yeah.
You know, that live off of dishonesty. Even, you know, we were watching a documentary, a few weeks ago, about Ashley Madison, this online, this was years ago, maybe 20 years ago, this online website that was created to help people who were married and wanted to have affairs.
Yeah.
And it was a whole dark web and a whole dark world, and it was all rooted in secrecy until hackers, like, I don't even think we finished the documentary.
No, we didn't,
exactly,
yeah.
you know, I think it eventually was like, got the premise of it,
Yeah.
but soul felt a little sick watching this. But the part that was interesting was people who, hackers went in and then released all the names. So you had all these people who thought that they had a cone of secrecy that now had been exploded. What was interesting to me was you had these guys who, on the other side of it, talked about just how it wasn't worth it, that they blew up their entire marriage. Not just because of a mistake, but really it was the drowning of dishonesty. And their spouses couldn't take it, going, what else are you doing in secret? What else are you doing in the dark?
Yeah.
Right? Because even in those instances, they couldn't communicate, I'm unhappy about X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Not justifying or rationalizing at all, but going, hey, can we have a conversation? There's a disconnect. And we need to get to the root of it. But rather than have that honest conversation, rather than communicate with the spouse, they begin communicating with other voices that aren't going to actually pull them forward. They're going to tear them down.
Wow. I think that's interesting about pulling forward and tearing down, because in their mind, when they got on that site, they were like, oh, this is what I want and this will make me happy. But it was actually the opposite. It was like an alluring, like, oh, you'll have freedom and you won't, and no one will know about it.
Yeah.
Except in the end, guess what? You'll know about it.
For sure. Yeah.
And it will eat you up inside knowing that you're living a double life.
Yep.
And that everyone around you, your wife or your kids, and sometimes vice versa, women doing it, but like they won't know the real you anymore. And you won't know the real you anymore.
Yeah.
Because now you have to keep up a facade, and no one really can live in a facade. I mean, you can live there for a long time, but you won't ever find like true joy or happiness.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's like the website was showing you like, oh, you can have all these things. You can have what you want, when you want it, and in secret. And then, like you said, it will tear you up, and it will rob you of everything that's good in your life, because you couldn't come and be honest and say, hey, I'm not happy in this relationship.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what's going on, but something has to change. And then they could have dealt with it with each other.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah. Yep.
And instead you do this way, and then there's no way of redeeming the relationship after that, because the trust is gone.
Yeah, for sure. And what's the relationship between trust and communication? Like, even when the trust is gone, do you see the natural response affecting a lack of communication?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the more times you hide from what's really happening, then like trust is just depleting. Even if it's only on your side, because you're the only one that knows that's happening. But like something's shifting in like you're putting a divisiveness between the relationship.
Yeah.
And I don't know if really like love you can pretend to love someone, but it's not true.
Mm.
Like I think that maybe that's with marriage. It's like it's such an interesting thing because you're constantly having to pull the walls down for the other person to see you.
Mm.
And as things get difficult, you start putting walls back up again. And then you come to the person and you go, oh my gosh, I put walls up. I need to pull them down so you can see me.
Mm.
I mean, I think that sometimes just in life, like you drift because you stop seeing each other. Or you stop, you're doing other things.
Sure.
And there's times in our relationship where I'm like, I don't feel like I know you. Like, what's happening with you? Like, what's in your world? And I think that's the key is, when you say marriage is hard, when we've said marriage is hard, I think it's because you have to work hard to making sure you pull down your walls and let the other person see you.
Yep.
And you have to work at that, being intentional, because you can just keep drifting. I mean, right now we're so busy. It's like, when do we say, okay, we need to connect?
Yeah, that's not 1 a.m.
Yeah.
After kids are bed and the house is clean and all that. Yeah. But yeah, when we're at our best, we find those spots and we get ahead of it. We're communicating.
Yes.
Hey, it's been,
days.
It's been, hopefully we want it to be days, not weeks.
Yeah. And
we
not
want to make sure
months.
it's weeks, not months. And it's not months, it's months, not years.
Dang.
And that's a part of communication, is going, okay, hey, I feel the drift.
Wow.
I feel, go ahead.
This is why I think with affairs is, even if the one person's doing the affair, it's never just that person's responsibility. Like, obviously they're making that choice to make it, but that's why it's on the other person too, to be like, hey, I feel like you're drifting, like care enough about the other person to see them drifting and know something's wrong.
Yep.
And go, hey, like, I feel like you're drifting away from me. What's happening? Can we connect? I love you. Fight for those moments that you can connect with each other, so that they're not drifting away and finding that attention somewhere else.
For sure, yeah. And and having one person who is willing to go first.
Wow, dang.
That's
good. That's it.
Somebody's always got to call it out, because most of the time, both parties feel it.
Yes.
But it takes one person to go first. And as with anything, always have to go first. Like, we're trying to instill this in our kids, and I was just having a conversation with our oldest Zai the other day, and just a lot of stuff happening in the house, a lot of emotions, a lot of frustrations, all that. But he literally said, asked him to do something, and I said, okay, I need you to lead the way. And he was just like, why do I always have to lead the way? Why do I always have to, do what nobody else is doing? And I just said, you don't have to. I'm not going to force you to, but that can be an incredible opportunity for you to show the beauty of being the firstborn.
Wow.
To being the oldest. That somebody has to be willing to do it.
Go first.
Right? Somebody's got to be willing to sacrifice. Somebody's got to be willing to pay the price, and you get to decide if it's you or not. So are you willing to go first?
Wow.
And it is tough sometimes. Sometimes you want to go second. Sometimes you want to go last. Sometimes you don't want to go at all. But something really powerful happens in relationships, especially when it comes to miscommunications, when somebody finally raises their hand and goes, hey, okay, something's off. Now what are we going to do about it?
Wow.
And then what you were talking before about trust, when there's trust that's established, when there's like a baseline of trust and commitment and loyalty, then you don't see it as an indictment or judgment. You see it as an invitation.
Wow.
Let's go somewhere together. Because
Yeah,
right now we're going
wow.
somewhere separately.
Wow. So if that person brings it to the other person, if there's trust there, then they'll say, okay, thanks for bringing this to me. Like, well, thanks for saying, hey, something's not right. Interesting. I just wonder if there are a lot of marriages that aren't based on any trust. Is that, or does trust get chipped away at so much that eventually you don't even realize, but you don't actually trust the other person. You don't trust each other.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, well, if I don't trust you, then I have to fight for my own, get my own win.
Yep. Absolutely.
Dang.
And then your spouse becomes your
enemy.
Your opponent, your enemy, as opposed to
Wow.
your confidant.
Like, I wonder if that's what like that small little adjustments that you can make, rather than waiting to that place where you're like, I will never be able to trust you anymore. I can't. We're not on the same team anymore.
Yep.
Like, I don't know how to do life if we're not on the same team.
For sure.
But I get it that's what takes work, is that you could have chosen each other like 10, 20 years ago, but it's very easy to drift because other things are pulling your attention and pulling you away. And you have to be the one that says, actually, this is my number one. Like, you're my number one priority. And our kids watch, like our kids live off that number one. Our relationship is what they're like growing on.
Yeah, totally. And that's a great point with the fact that we're always communicating.
Yeah.
We're always in communication with not just our spouse, but with our kids, with our coworkers,
Dang.
With our neighbors, our family. And so it's not just about the way that you communicate with each other, but it's the way you communicate about each other.
Yeah.
With the people around you.
Yeah.
And like we were, having a conversation with some people recently, and even something came up about communication specifically, and it was like communication, with people who could be friends, and when there's cross pollination with, male, female, and different friend groups, and we're just talking about how it gets nuanced, and it gets. If you don't set boundaries and establish value systems, things can get communicated even if you didn't mean it to.
Wow.
And that's why you want to make sure the person that you're in a relationship with, they're always at the forefront of your mind, and how you're communicating, so that other people know, oh, this is what matters to her.
Yes.
This is what matters to him.
Yeah.
This is what matters to them.
Yeah.
And we've had that journey where, there's been times where you're like, even specifically, going like communicating with girls who are friends, you were like, I'm not very comfortable with this.
Yeah.
The nature of this. And I felt pretty innocent in terms of it wasn't any intention.
It was like bantering.
Yeah, and I was like, I could go, I mean, the first natural instinct was, what? Like, not at all. That's crazy, or making a mountain out of a molehill.
Yeah.
Or I go, it's irrelevant whether I think it's a mountain or a molehill. What's relevant to the situation is that she's uncomfortable with it.
Yeah.
And so then, and because I've communicated to you, to me, and the world around me that you were the most important person, then that became an easy, okay, it's done.
Yeah.
Because there's trust established, because there's priority established. Where, maybe back to even what we were talking about before, I think that's some of the dance from something that you do just because you agree with it, and something you do because you value and love the person. And I think that's
very sweet.
The thing that's more important to me.
Wow.
Is the person is valued more than the opinion is valued.
I mean, that's fame.
What?
It's just too good. Because here I am like, value my opinion. And you're like, well, what? I just think it's very beautiful, because maybe that's kind of what's missing in society more and more, is like not valuing the person and caring more about being right than about honoring the other person. So you may be right in a situation, there may be a conflict that you're having with your person, And you may be right, but what's more important, to win the argument or to win the person?
Yep.
And I'd rather win the person. I'd rather win the person over. And sometimes that's going to take humility.
Might take humiliation as
Might take
well.
humiliation too. But like laying it down, like, okay, what do I, like everything about relationship is learning to caring about someone else over yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's letting go of selfishness.
Mm.
And what do I get out of this?
Yeah.
And you have really, truly taught me that it's better for the other person to win and us to win over me, the individual.
Mm.
And so, yeah, I love that you. Oh, you're talking about that's right, about the text message. Like the preferences, who cares about preferences? Like, okay, but I prefer to chat with this person. It's like, does that really matter when you're with someone else and what matters to them or what makes them feel comfortable, what makes them feel loved, valued, seen is more important than my preference to text a joke over text message.
Mm-hmm.
Like I love that you were willing just to let it go. 'Cause you're like, okay, I don't really care. It means nothing to me, but if it means something to you, I'm gonna let it go.
Mm.
And
sure.
I think that, like, I think most of the time, especially in dating, is we're fighting for what's our preferences. We're fighting for like, no, this is me and this is my individual. Don't take this away from me. It's like, is that really necessary, or can you let it go?
Yep.
Like, are you willing to change for someone else? Because in the end, when you're loving someone else and you're letting those things go, you're actually probably becoming better.
100%,
right? You're becoming more of character. You're becoming more of a leader. Like even the way that you're telling Sai to go first, like I love that you're instilling in him that's actually the greatest gift. He doesn't even know it, because sometimes he does say that. I'm like, it's annoying to be the firstborn. But now I'm like, oh, actually that's a gift, because in life, people will succeed when they go first.
That's great.
If you wait for someone else to go first, then you miss the opportunity. Someone else will take it.
Yeah.
But if you put yourself out there and go, you know what, I want this, and go first, then you're more likely to succeed. And he doesn't even know it, that when we keep pushing him to lead the way and lead well, that we're teaching him a character principle that will like set him up for life.
Yeah. And it's in all those little moments that make the biggest difference in the world. You know, like hopefully literally right now, he's doing a audition for a musical, but it's like so nervous and so scared, but also he's seeing the evidence and the direct correlation to all the things that my parents have been trying to teach me about responsibility, about ownership, about stepping up.
Yeah.
You know, like we think everything's in a vacuum, but life is cumulative. You know, and going, we want to make sure that he's in the right space, in the right environment to thrive.
Yeah.
And trying to see the correlation between being a firstborn, going first, see the correlation between traveling and seeing other worlds and other cultures, see the correlation between having to deal with like hard moments with brothers and sisters, that not shying away from those things, but pressing into them and elevating in all these environments are going to show itself up when he's auditioning for this musical that he really wants to be a part of, because everything is connected.
Yeah. That makes me think like that's why marriage and relationships are so important, and that you communicate them well, because if you're not communicating with your person that you're supposed to be on a team with, how are you going to communicate with your team that you work with?
Yeah, for sure.
Like if you can see it, if there's a disconnect and a miscommunications that are happening with your spouse or the person you're dating, then look around and go, hang on a minute, where else am I missing too?
Yeah.
Because sometimes you may be the boss and they can't tell you
Mm.
that you're not communicating because
Yep.
they're under you. But that's a great indicator to go, hang on a minute, if I'm not communicating here, then where am I missing too?
Mm.
And that everything's connected.
Yep. And like sometimes you have to receive the like correction and the rebuke, or when something's brought to you, oh, we're not on the same page, we're miscommunicating with each other, I need to share this thing with you, and then you respond accordingly. There's other times when you have to just get ahead of it, when you have to have foresight and acknowledge, and then course correct it, because it always moves faster when you're in that space. Like, it makes me think, like, River, our youngest boy, is a ball of energy, and he is a fire hose and a raging river. We named him River because we want him to be a force in the world.
Yeah.
Where when he goes, things have to get out of his way.
Yeah, that's so true.
And we got what we asked for, and so. But anyway, yeah, he's dealing a lot right now with, like, when he's disappointed or angry or mad, he's like sees red and gets loud. So we're trying to teach him, hey, this isn't a way to communicate. This isn't a way to get what you want. Like, you got to have mastery over your emotions.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we've been having these conversations with him, and then a couple days ago, he was just not listening. He was being, our
Wild.
River.
Yeah.
And I raised my voice a little bit, because I felt like he wasn't hearing me, and I was trying to match frequencies, and I could over spiritualize it that way, or I could just say I was really angry.
Yeah.
And in a moment of weakness, I snapped and I like yelled at him, and it accomplished two things. One, it jarred him and jolted him.
Yeah.
I wasn't screaming, but I definitely was.
Yeah. Used your.
Fierce enough.
Yeah.
And it jolted him. And he could feel the difference, because I don't raise my voice hardly ever. And so it did that. It caught his attention. But then the second thing it did is it scared him. And he just got really scared. And he was just crying and saying, like, Daddy, you yelled at me, and Daddy, you told me not to yell, and then you yelled. And he just was being so honest and so real and so transparent. It like broke my heart.
Yeah.
To see this little 5-year-old, who knew he did something wrong, and that the response of it was I wasn't happy with him.
Yeah.
And so I just had to take it on the chin, and I had to humble myself and just grabbed him right away and just apologized and said, buddy, I'm so sorry. You did it. You can never do something wrong, or should never do something wrong that causes me to feel like I'm right to respond to you with negativity as well. That I don't want you to think that Daddy can be mad at you and put you down because you didn't do what you're supposed to.
Yeah.
And I just didn't want a narrative that when I'm wrong, speaking on River's behalf, the only way to get me back into the right space is to exert my power and to show you that I can be more wrong than you. I want to make sure he understands that even when you're at your worst, we're always going to see your best.
Wow.
And we're going to try to bring out your best. And it changed me in the way that I was parenting him, to go, I can't increase my volume or increase my frustration.
Mm-hmm.
I have to increase my peace.
Wow.
I have to increase my optimism. I have to increase my
Yeah.
hope. I have to remind him that there's a better way. I have to show them that there's a better way.
Yeah.
And I have to communicate to him that this isn't the best way to act and move and the best way to communicate. I'm going to show you what it can look like and what it should look like.
Wow.
And it reshifted things in my brain, and going, okay, I need to make sure that I'm communicating to him the right attributes and value systems that I want him to adopt in his spirit.
Wow. I mean, he's definitely a test.
Yes, he is.
I don't know if we've had a kid as fiery as he is.
Right, and I don't want him to lose that fire.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Just
just
wanna channel it.
rechanneling it.
Yeah.
Rechanneling it. I think that was interesting because what's interesting is that you went to the other tool, which is fear, and that you can use fear to dominate over him to do to get his attention.
Yep.
Because it feels like, how am I going to get his attention when he's a tornado, you know? It's like, he's wild. He's just like unleashed.
Glenn Powell, yeah.
Yeah.
Twisters, yeah.
And I know that I've done that too. So I feel just as convicted. I'm like, okay. And it's interesting because we've spoken to his teacher, and his teacher tells us like the tools that she does with him. And so I'm like, okay, I need to adopt those tools too. So I'm literally using those same tools, like, hey, River, I'm right here. Do you need a hug? Can we talk this out? Like trying to pull him down, even though he's like, woo!
Yep.
And I think like this is the thing about parenting, that it shows like you have to do something not just one time, not twice, not 3 times, not 4 times, but 1,000 times.
Yep.
It like takes so much patience to keep responding in the same way. But like you said, if you want him to adopt this, then you have to show it by action, not just telling him that he has to do something different, but showing him this is how we act.
Which is the same with every relationship.
Yeah.
Not just parenting, right? It's the same with romantically. It's the same with family. It's the same with employee, employer, or vice versa, with peers, right? We're always going to communicate most effectively by the choices that we make, not just by the things that we say. And that's going
like
to be
action speaks louder than words.
100%.
Yeah.
You know, wish there was a better saying, but it's
no,
powerful.
but it's true, because you could say like, "Oh, I love you," but then when you're out in a public environment, you disregard them or put them down, or like it's all about you. Then you're like, "Well, you say you loved me, but then in here, I can see that you really don't."
Yeah.
Which maybe could be something that's interesting for people that are dating, that to watch, like, okay, he may be telling you this in private, but how does he treat you in public?
For sure.
And how does he talk about you to his friends?
Yeah.
How does he include you with his friends?
Yeah.
Does he elevate you in front of his friends?
And then also, how do you communicate to your friends, to your family?
Yeah.
Because that's a thing that could like jeopardize a relationship so often, is not just a lack of communication with you and the person you're with, but it's in the way that you communicate to friends, family, coworkers about that person.
Wow.
And that's a danger that you have to be careful.
That's good.
And that you're not painting them out to be a villain to all the people who are going to be your biggest champion, and they're going to be like be your ride or dies. And then you're wondering why there's no intimacy in the community. It's because they don't like them.
Yeah.
And it's because of the story that you've told about them.
Yeah, that's good.
But then you haven't actually said that very thing to them.
Yeah.
You know, because if he's arrogant, tell him he's arrogant. He needs a fix. If he's, selfish, tell her she's selfish.
Yeah, like
she needs to think about other people, X, Y, Z. But if the only conversation you're having about those attributes are with other people, then it's a recipe for a disaster of relationship. Yeah, that will crumble in the end.
I mean, I feel like that reminds me of when Erwin, I think maybe on Mindshift podcast, he was talking about, I mean, he's said this many years about like Instagram. He's like, you really can tell of how much you value someone through Instagram. Like, do you post about them? If I don't see any posts, then I'm like, do you even care about this person? And I get it that people who can be private, and they can say that, oh, I'm private, so I don't want to do that. But if you're public about some things, but you're private about this, then really are you just hiding behind that? You tell that person, oh, I'm just a private person.
Yeah.
But you're not private in other areas of your life.
Mm.
So it's like if their actions are saying one thing, follow through the action. Like, don't get manipulated to think, I guess gaslit or anything, to think, oh, you're crazy.
Mm.
No, follow through with it and go, actually, you are saying through your actions that you don't care. And then call it for what it is.
Yeah, it's good. Yep.
Maybe you have to be the first person to. That's tough. If you care about the other person more than they care about you, but you're the one that has to come first to say, actually, I think you're showing by your actions that you don't really care, and being the first person to bring it up, it's tough because if you bring it up, that will probably be the end. But wouldn't you rather be with someone who truly values you than being with someone who likes you?
It's great.
Like, I want to be married to you because you're fully head over heels in love with me, obsessed with me.
I'm obsessed with you, babe. Absolutely obsessed.
Right? Because you want to be in love and obsessed with each other for years to come.
Yep.
But if it doesn't start off that way, then call it what it is and then move on and find someone who you can be obsessed with and they're obsessed with you.
Yeah. It's great. Well, on that note, thank you for listening to I was gonna say Unspoken. Maybe that's a side project that we start, Unspoken. It's the dangerous side of Unguarded, but no. Hope you've enjoyed this episode. We love you so much wherever you're tuning in around the world. We do this for you because we want to help you win in relationships and win in life. And let's just keep making each other better. Appreciate you. We love you so much. Until next time, God bless, and let's communicate the way that we need to.
Yes. Bye.